is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, Thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Tholahungva. An old idea is back. The White House Council on Native American Affairs will be up and operating on May 4th. Tyler Fish is the new executive director. He's Cherokee and Muskogee Creek. Fish currently serves as the White House Senior Policy Advisor. He's held that position for nearly a year. The council Fish will oversee brings together representatives from a variety of government agencies to coordinate policy on American Indians and Alaska Natives. The last time the White House Council on Native Americans was around, Richard Nixon was in the White House. Tribal governments and casinos are extending closures across the country. In Southern California, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians is extending the closure of its casino until May 31st. The tribe is continuing to pay all team members, including benefits, during the closure. The Gila River Indian Community in Central Arizona extended its partial closure of community government offices to May 15th. The community remains under a public health state of emergency. And in Florida, all 6 casinos owned by the Seminole Nation remain closed. It employs nearly 14,000 people. The tribe says the closures are protecting their livelihoods without jeopardizing public safety. A notice on the website says the casinos will reopen once it is appropriate and safe to do so. The Chicago Indian Center is closed, but staff are still offering emergency relief services. The Indian Center is working with Up Together and have given out more than $1,700 in emergency relief funds for Native Americans and Alaska Natives who live in the city. They started a food pantry and gave out 125 food boxes for elders and families. They also added traditional medicine such as sage and sweetgrass to the food boxes. And for the kids, they printed coloring pages by Native artists to keep them busy. They are now giving out seed starter kits so that people can grow their own vegetables. Now for the latest on the number of positive COVID tests in Indian Country, let's go to Jordan Bennett-Begay, our Washington editor. Jordan?
Yate Patty and Yate Shikis Do Shidine. So as of yesterday, April 28th, there's a total of 2,711 positive confirmed cases in the Indian health system, as well as 89 deaths. Again, that is 2,711 positive confirmed cases and 89 deaths. And just as a reminder to the viewers out there, that Indian Country Today tries its best to go out and seek this data from tribes themselves, or we also look at the Google submissions from tribal citizens or tribal leaders. And a lot of these submissions or this data also comes in emails that are submitted to all of us. So for this data that just came in, Navajo Nation saw an increase of 104 cases and 1 additional death. Gila Pueblo in New Mexico had 6 new cases. They now have 21 new cases total, and they are, Patty, they're a small, very small community as well. Cherokee had 6 new cases, and Tohono O'odham saw an additional 3 more cases as of yesterday. And overall in the U.S., they hit like 1 million positive confirmed cases in the country.
So many numbers and so many people attached to all of those numbers, Jordan. We are following all of these cases as they come in, and it's startling to see that number of positive tests. But on the other hand, it's also what people want is to get those tests done so that we can see how many people are positive. And again, the virus affects people in different ways.
Yes, no, that's definitely right. And as these positive confirmed cases do come in, and also experts have said that this is also a result of more testing being done. With that in mind, there are also tribal communities that still do not have testing at this point. A couple of tribes in California still don't have access to testing, or even the Abbott testing, which is the 13-minute test that you would get back.
So the test kits that need to get out to tribal communities, and so that's a big push there too. And then to have those Abbott laboratories to actually process the test to see if they're positive or negative. So Jordan Bennett-Begay, thank you so much.
Yeah, Patty.
And we'll be right back. welcome back. This coronavirus pandemic has impacted tribal businesses, individual families, all areas of our lives. And one community that also is impacted are the artists in our communities. And joining us today is Randy Kemp, and he is an artist based in Phoenix, Arizona. Randy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, welcome to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So you had a number of gigs set up, and they were across the country when this started. The pandemic hit the U.S. How did it affect your gigs?
Well, right away, we started seeing folks sending out emails and ideas about the closure and not quite understanding when that was going to happen. So there was a lot of folks waiting to see what happens, but then all of a sudden the emails started to come in to say things are postponed, canceled, and that meant that we had to cancel more than just the gigs themselves or the events. It's everything else that goes along with that. Our flights, our hotels, all the other events that are attached to that. So there was a lot of things, and just in one event that meant that we had to close down for that. And it started tumbling pretty fast in the very beginning that, we lost a lot of connections.
Is that what really made you aware about how contagious this virus is?
You know, it began to make us understand what we were up against and what we needed to do to protect ourselves if we continue with these events. The consideration of understanding a group of people and what this virus was doing. But it was not enough information yet for us to really fully understand what we were up against. So that was a trick. I was really concerned at some point, though, for not going.
Yes, and your wife also works in the medical field, and so she must have been aware too and bringing information home.
Yeah, and she works through one of the hospitals that's government related. So she was getting information to the employees and the medical staff. And so I was kind of reliant on that because that was more clear information versus social media and other outlets that were giving us information. So I tend to lean on that information that was coming into the home and what we needed to do. It just seemed strange to start practicing these sorts of things all the time. The cleaning, the washing the hands, the protection of the breathing, and then also understanding your own health. Like what are the issues that we're up against? So yeah, there was some real concerns there.
Well, I'm kind of laughing about the washing of the hands. I think that's become the most aware. This is big. I interviewed a healthcare worker a couple of weeks ago, and he said, gosh, they were surprised as healthcare workers that it took a pandemic to get people to start washing their hands thoroughly.
Right.
So we've all realized how badly we've been washing our hands. And so at least that's something that's changed in this pandemic. I don't think anyone will go back to just briefly washing their hands. They're going to be really thinking and thoroughly cleaning their hands.
Right. And the distancing, it was interesting to, when we're talking about cultural distances as well, Indian people at a distance would just go, hey, and we're probably 8 to 10 feet away. We're like, we never really get that close. But we'll just say, in gesture. But in other cultures, people get really close to you. And it's like, well, that's the part about society that you have to practice that distance. But it was really interesting to deal with that.
Did you move your lips up when you did that?
Yeah, I did quite. Yeah. That's as far as I wanted to go. It's like, okay, good seeing you. All right.
We're not going to be handshaking anymore. We're just going to be pointing with our lips, right?
Even that, most natives that I saw, they were all just going, just a slight wave, and that's it anyway. So
I've adopted the Vulcan hand sign.
I would, but I can't get my fingers to do that. They're just doesn't work for me. But yeah, exactly.
Well, as a parent, you have a son who is going to school in San Francisco. Tell us about that.
Yeah, our son Raven was attending San Francisco Art Institute, and at the same time this pandemic hit, they were close to finishing school as well, and which meant that the city was going to do a lockdown, which meant that it gave them little time to prepare. I mean, to think about the pandemic and school was quite a pressure. And that when the city decided that they were going to close and do a lockdown, it was time for him to get out. And we wanted him to get out. And he brought a classmate with him so that they can still work from our home and still do classes online at a safe distance here in Arizona. So that worked out really well. But it's not the same thing as being there and having hands-on. So that was a bit of a tough practice for them. So they're doing really well. One is graduating, one is still going to be in school. So yeah, we're really happy about that.
So they're finishing their semester in Phoenix.
Yes, yes.
And the friend he brought home, that friend is also from Australia, I understand?
Yeah. She hasn't been there in a while, but she has connections to that country and has been studying in the San Francisco Art Institute for a while and is the one graduating. She's got her degree. They are studying art and technology, so which is really an amazing feat to do. So they're real close because they're sharing projects together, and so that's why it's good for them to work from home. Here we have a lot of technology here in the other room that they've got set up, which allows them to create music, post things, and just continue with their studies as well.
And what is she hearing from her family and friends from Australia?
Well, it's kind of not lately they haven't been in touch. So everything sounds good. I mean, like I said, Australia is a big place, so distancing isn't always a problem, but sometimes in the cities, that's where the issues are. But we're hearing good things as well. And I think she also has connections to folks in New Zealand as well. There's a family member there. So they're also practicing the same distancing and whatever the country proposes for them as well, because I think all these countries and cities are proposing different regulations and ideas about how to deal with this virus. So it's interesting how it may be different in one country to one city to one town. So, yeah.
And all across, even in the United States, there's some states that have the stay-at-home order. Other states don't have anything in place. And so there's a big mixed message about, what you should do. But again, according to CDC guidelines, the Center for Disease Control, they're saying, stay at home. So if you don't move around, you won't move the virus around.
Right. Now, the thing I think about is not just who practices that, but those who don't and come into your kind of circle is when the invisible happens. And that's what we are careful of as well, the contact part. And because I've had a health issue. And so I'm one of those folks that have to really be careful about my contact with that, because I have no idea who might carry the virus, and they may not know as well, and that's understandable. But at the same time, I have to be the one who takes all the precautions for that. So that's.
I was just going to ask you about that, because again, you have a very interesting story with your own personal health, and I think it was in 2017. Is that right? 2017. 2016. You had a heart attack. Take us through that journey, because it was not simple and it was not short. It was pretty intensive.
Well, in 2016 was my year of retirement for my work at Arizona State University. So that was my 30th year. And I was looking forward to all the goodbyes and the celebrations and so on. But about April of 2016, I started having pains in my shoulder, which I thought was my collarbone from an earlier football kind of accident. But I went into the doctors, and the pain was there. And they said, well, let's hook you up to the EKG. And I did. And they went out the room and they came back. The doctor says, hey, come with me, follow me down the hallway. First they asked me, are you able to walk? I go, yeah, I walk in. So we're walking down the hallway, and all of a sudden the lights in the hospital came on. And I said, well, what's going on? To the doctor. He says, well, that's a cold blue. So what does that mean? He says, well, someone's having a heart attack. I go, oh, really? He says, yeah, it's you. And I'm walking behind the doctor, and he leads me into a room. And within 5 minutes, we had the room full of people, doctors and nurses, and they were cutting off my clothing, my shoes, my good Saucony running shoes. And 5 months later, I spent my entire time in the hospital because of that heart attack. And in that 5 months, 1 month of it was actually in a coma for healing. So I lost a month of time. And then I experienced probably 2 flat lines as I stayed there, more than 5 minutes of flatline. So all these things were stories that my family told me as I was going through it, because I had really no idea what was really happening. I ended up with 2 stents in my heart, and I have a defibrillator on my side, which is the size of your cell phone, just beneath the skin. So that monitors anything. If I have an episode of the heart, then it kicks in. But that's 5 months that I've been trying to get back and also give back to my family. My wife Beverly and my daughter Raquel and my son Raven were there around me 24 hours a day, taking turns watching over me in different phases of my time in the hospital, because at the very end was the recovery. And that meant I had to learn how to eat again, how to speak again, how to walk again, because your time laying in the bed it takes everything away from you, your dexterity, your muscles, everything that you can think of. And I didn't know I would even be sitting here today thinking about these sorts of things, or let alone going back to doing art and playing music. And I'll tell you this, the most valuable thing I got out of the entire experience is that we are a community of family across this nation that help one another. And that's important, because I got an outpouring of support through just our Phoenix community, Arizona community, Oklahoma, New Mexico, California, and the art community came together. And whether or not I knew half of these folks, they knew there was someone in need, and they supported the events that was supporting me and my family. And again, Patty, I want to thank you and Didi Yazzie and folks like that who also came to visit me as I was in the hospital. And I don't always remember who came, and I don't think that everyone got to see me as well because of the privacy of that situation. But there was a lot of folks who came, and I appreciate that. And it's a much longer process and details, but that's essentially what happened. And I'm glad that I'm here. And now I can give back. I'm working back into the community. I'm doing a lot of art markets and gigs and private events and so on, and just sharing music and my stories and so on, because that's a big part of the healing process, is sharing and talking about these things that happen to you. So, and I'm sure that's what's going to happen again with this connection of the virus. There are a tremendous amount of stories out there that we're going to hear. And it's going to be good to hear that, because it's a part of the healing, even though we know the tragedy that's involved and the near misses and the issues that we had to deal with, and the life-changing things that happened to us. But it's important for us to share that as well.
Well, and thank you for sharing that very personal story with us, because again, in this time, you wonder, you went through so much, you survived that, and now here you are in this pandemic. And so many people are like that. You know, they've survived all kinds of things in their lives, and now we're dealing with this pandemic. And so, what are the lessons that we can take from you being hospitalized for 5 months and then being home? Because once you got home, you had to stay home. That was like your own stay-at-home order, while you continued to heal until you got back to 100%.
Right. It was almost a year after I got out of the hospital. So in addition to the 5 months, it took a year practically for me to heal, because there was a lot of things in between. I mean, I wasn't totally out of the woods when I got back, but being at home, because I'm an artist, I gradually went back to, you know, the painting and printmaking, the things I can do here at home, and working on music, my flute playing, and also writing stories and poems and things like that that are going to be eventually something I can use and share. And I do have that as a part of my performances for storytelling. And all of this, you know, makes sense when I share that, because there's always someone out in the audience that has gone through something similar or is going through. And me talking about it gives the green light about, yeah, well, let's share that and let's see where we're at and just keep checking on each other and grow from there. But having this pandemic happen now again is kind of another isolation. And I don't know how long, you know, we don't know how long this may take, and we don't know, depending on what state you're in and what, you know, city, how that affects us. So I'm just going to take it day by day. And I know that there are some events that are starting to come back online. I'm really thankful for some of the art groups that are helping artists online. And as you know, there's been a lot of artists performing online, which is great to see. That is so important for us to hear. And it gives a pulse on our community out there, how we're doing and how we're sharing. That's a part of us looking after each other. And I'm really thankful and grateful for a lot of the artists that are doing that. I haven't done it yet, but I'm looking forward to doing one of the events myself. So who knows what that means, because it could mean anything.
Yeah, right. Well, so what change do you see that you're going to have in your life after we come back into, I don't even know what to call it, because it's not normal. It's going to be a different kind of normal. But what one change do you see yourself making right now?
It's still carrying on the practices of watching out for myself, my self-protection, sort of the numbers of groups who I meet with, the distancing thing. Really, the travel part is going to be kind of the task of understanding what I need to do. Because I know that right now there's a lot of folks, unfortunately, who are not practicing some of the protection ideals. So I can just imagine what that would be like in a larger setting, such as an airport, terminal, and so on. So those are the challenges I think we're going to be up against. And I think I have to think about that in a kind of a new way. So yeah, there's going to be some reimagining of a normal. And I hope that we don't go back to a normal of normals, but something better than that, something that really we do take something from this virus, that it has taught us maybe the caring part of that issues that we deal with. So we'll see, but I know that I will have a challenge on my hands. So.
Okay, we have just a really short amount of time left, but I do want you to mention when you had the opportunity to play for Barack Obama at the Arizona State University graduation.
Yeah, in 2009, I got a call from the event folks and said, yeah, you want to come and play for the graduation at Sun Devil Stadium? And I said, yeah, I'm not doing anything. And says, well, yeah, the president will be doing the address that day. And I go, oh, okay. Well, I didn't really believe it until I saw the tickets come my way and I got it. It was amazing. I go, all right, I should start practicing now, right? And the interesting story about that, and hopefully I'm brief enough, but just as I was walking out to the field, across the entire field, and there are 70,000 folks in that stadium in 2009. The Secret Service folks told me as I walked out into the field was, the last thing they told me was, above the stadium, we have snipers. And I thought, great, why are you telling me that now? And is that for me? Because all I am is a flute player. And I made it to the stage, I played. The only problem with that is that I brought a double chambered flute that has 2 barrels of the,
Oh, no.
and I thought, well, the president is over to my right. I'm not going to play that direction because I was looking for the red dot on my shirt all the time.
You're watching out. That's a great story to end with. Randy Kemp, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mado, appreciate it. Be safe and be well.
Yes, and thank you for joining us. Take care of yourselves. Your life is precious. Thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Tolahungva. We'll see you tomorrow.
This is Indian Country Today.